Hi, welcome to Jeremy's Tech Channel, and today we discuss whether desktop Linux should steal Google's playbook. Hold up, don't worry. I'm not saying a lot of things about Google. I'm only talking about one thing in particular, and we'll discuss that. But first, my name is Jeremy, and this channel's about tech. Go figure. I've really been processing Linux as a whole, desktop operating systems as a whole, as some of my videos have come out recently show. Through my research, I was looking for, something to get my kids that might be a little entry level as far as a laptop or desktop goes. And there are very few like entry level desktop or laptop computers that you can use for Linux. Now, yes, of course you can buy a cheap laptop and install Linux. So before anyone gets upset and say, well, just buy the cheapest thing you can and install Linux, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Let me reveal specifically what I'm actually talking about. I've kind of, alluded to it. But there has been a lot of things that have happened over the past couple of years. You have the Steam Deck that has Linux on it and has desktop Linux on it. And that has really been able to put some things out in the forefront that says, hey, Linux, that works pretty good for gaming. At the core of things in the Android on the phone is, at the core there's some Linux kernel there. And as well with Chromebook OS or Chrome OS, they have, a Linux kernel. And if you get the right Chromebook, you can flip on a developer option that lets you install some Linux apps, okay? But really, if someone wants Linux, the most practical way to do it is you have an old machine, you install Linux, and you go from there. Or you use a virtual machine and just kind of mess around with it and see if it's something you want to deal with. And, both of those good options. I definitely suggest installing Linux on an old machine and something that, if it messes up, you can just wipe it and start over instead of something that's vital for your daily workflow. But I've been thinking, how do we grow beyond Chrome OS as far as Linux, desktop Linux specifically? Linux is widely used in the server space, widely used in so many other areas. I'm just talking about desktop Linux today. And I have a couple of ideas. You have two main models from a business perspective that have gotten things going as far as marketing and getting pushed into the market share. One is kind of like the Tesla model, right? So you have this super cool, super slick, whether you like Tesla or not, or Elon Musk or something. I'm just talking about the car and the model that they chose to use to introduce a product, introduce the business. They had this super high, out of the range of most people being able to purchase, and they delivered this electric vehicle, and people used it, and very few people could afford it, and they made it like something that people would desire, and then they slowly adding in lower tiered SKUs for people to buy into. And now I think there's a base model that's under $40,000, but a base model, you're spending way more than that. But the point is that it's gone from well over $100,000 to, well under $100,000. And that's a way to do and get people and to get yourself into a market. Another way to do that is the Chromebook way. And so, Chromebook came in 2011. They were cheaper devices. I think it was $349 and $449 were the two devices that came out. And then they started to really push it into schools. And they're like, hey, you can just spend $20 to $28 a month and get this in. There's less to get it into your schools as far as needing upkeep and all of those kinds of things that you deal with traditional IT solutions. This will be great, right? And it got a lot of people in the door, whether it's through cost or just making life a little simpler. And, those were not amazing devices that they did. And the downside of that is the devices didn't have long-term support, so they just created all kinds of e-waste. There was also some privacy issues with the Chromebook that cause some issues and some complaints. I'm not talking about that, but what I am talking about in that model is a low price point hardware to get people in to see if it's something they would like to use. If you remember, Macs way back, way back, you knew you wouldn't get off Microsoft Office. You knew you wouldn't get a lot of software that you would have on Microsoft, and you were okay with it. And if you're a hardcore Linux user, desktop Linux user, you probably feel that way right now. I can do whatever I need to without Microsoft or without Adobe or without whatever fill in the blank software that everyone says they have to have, right? Totally understand. So they got in similarly in the schools, right? They got in the schools. I remember going to computer lab and working on an Apple computer. And that was one of the first introductions. I'm in my 40s, so that should let you know where I was at when I was in elementary school. We're talking a long time ago. And that was my first introduction to computers as far as in an education environment. So I have a proposal and some thoughts, and I'm wanting us to kind of think through. And as Linux users, we tend to find the problems in things instead of looking for solutions. And it's just the nature of, something's not working. I got to figure out what the problem is so that I can find the solution. I totally understand. But I'm wondering if we can come up with some solutions, some ideas, and maybe we come up with a model that either someone might run with, like another company that makes laptops or desktops like System 76 or Slimbook or something like that, or maybe we start our own company. I don't know. But I'm wondering if there was an entry-level market for Linux, someone who might actually be looking at Chrome OS. Now, I know Chrome OS has started to lengthen its support timeline. It used to be as little as like 2 years or something like that. But I think it's now at like 5 to 7, which is much more reasonable. But the price of the devices have gotten up. When I went to buy my kids' Chromebooks, we're talking $450 to $800, and I ended up getting one way cheaper than that. I got my kids for $250, which for a Chromebook, but way better than I didn't realize they had gone up in price so much. So what if we had something that was $350? $300 to $350, maybe $299 to $399, right? And it's a basic system. It's nothing crazy. Maybe the same model as like the Snapdragon X Elite. I'm not saying that nice of a chip, but maybe an ARM architecture chip that would be very energy efficient. I know that a lot of Linux distributions have created ARM options for their operating systems, so that would be super cool. And we have something like that, and we install one Linux distribution. And obviously, if someone like yourself or myself purchased this device and wanted to put something else on there, we'd make it super easy, right? But let's say we all put every one of these devices has Pop! OS on it, or Linux Mint, or something along those lines, kind of just already set up, an image ready to go that people could get an experience and go ahead and get online. Should we put Google Chrome on there, or should we just leave it with just Firefox? And some of you are like, Google Chrome! I get it. They have one option to learn from, and it's, a well-built machine, but it's simple. Maybe it's not the nicest magnesium casing on it. Maybe it's just plastic, a nice plastic, or a less nice metal. I don't know. But you're gonna have to order a whole bunch of them to do this. Maybe I'm starting a business. I don't know. Or maybe like someone like System 76 could have like a side, like an offshoot of their company that's like, Toyota kind of helped Scion out. So you would go to a Toyota dealer in Americas, and you could buy a Scion at a Toyota dealership. But essentially, a low-level entry device, single SKU. Can't upgrade it. I mean, you can upgrade it, but what I mean is when you purchase it, it's got one SKU. It's got this ARM processor. It's got basic I/O, and it's got Pop! OS on it or Linux Mint. And it allows you to get something going for someone and they get introduced to Linux. And maybe we could get that same device into a school, and maybe the upkeep cost we could get at a much cheaper cost. Because if we have education and schools using Linux, hey, maybe that is a part of it. Hey, I was really comfortable with that. Maybe I should purchase another Linux computer. How do I do that? System 76 or Slimbook or Tux. Please, if you're a computer maker, I'm not singling out. Those are just the ones that are in my head right now. And there have been some big companies that have made Linux versions. I remember HP made a developer option with Pop! OS. I know Dell typically has one SKU that has Linux on it. I know Lenovo has one. But the cost of these things are just typically a lot more. So I tried to find a lower SKU, like a lower cost model. And this was one that I found, and Slimbook has these, but it's 600 euro. And, it's a basic 8 gig, 256. You can add a cell plan to it. You can choose your OS on it. You can choose your keyboard language on it. I mean, this is super cool. I think that's a very reasonably priced device. Especially if you're in Europe, I think that's a reasonably priced device. And these are the kinds of size devices I'm talking about. Someone like myself, or if you're a gamer, you definitely want a dedicated graphics card and way more memory than this. But my point is, this was as cheap as I could find. System 76, their cheapest laptops are, $11.99. Now, are they well-spec'd laptops? Absolutely. They look great. They look like a professional machine that you can use. So I'm not saying those aren't good. They look amazing. I would love to check one of those out one day. You can call me up, System 76 or Slimbook if you want. But I'm not kidding, but I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not kidding because that would be super cool. I'm looking for a single model that could be used to penetrate the education market for browser bros who just use their internet browser, or like I was looking for something for my kids, for them to learn on and have simple solution, good to go. Or maybe I could move away from the Chromebook. I was looking for something like that for my kids, and I thought, wow, it would be really great for us to find a way for that to happen for more people. So my point in stealing Google's playbook is not to steal Google's playbook about anything else, except how they got Chrome OS in the marketplace. I think it's over 10%. And I wonder if a single SKU'd, well-built, simple machine that kids get introduced in the education space, or, you get for your mom or your dad, or something like that, them their internet machine for email and web checking, would really work for a lot of people. And that would sort of break the cycle of getting used to a thing, right? Like, you're so used to using Windows. So I just want Windows. I know where things are. I know what things to do in Windows, even though, they really don't, right? Still break stuff, still have issues, still have viruses everywhere, all that kind of stuff. And for those of you that are concerned about, the Linux market share growing, and then that's going to cause some more security issues, you know what? It's a valid concern. So we have to figure that out too, right? We need to figure out how to make sure that Linux is secure for everyone at any point and any time. If it scared you that I suggested that we find a way to get into the market share, I'm sorry. I'm a newer Linux user. I think it's great. I have my whole family on Linux. I think I mentioned my kids are on Chrome OS, my younger three, but my older son and my wife and myself, we use Linux, and I love maintaining it. I was hoping to find some model, $300 to $400 US dollars model that was just work. Something that is simple but well built, that a school can use, that a regular user could use, a child could use, and would work well. I don't mind spending 600 to $2,000 for myself for a work computer or developer's computer or a multimedia computer or a gaming computer. I have no problems with that. I think that is well worth the cost. But that's not for everyone. And another thought on this, what if for every $50 that was, of that money that was spent, of the profit, goes to some sort of development process for the Linux desktop. You have the Linux Foundation, and they support the Linux kernel and a bunch of other projects that they support. But what if we had something that helps support the KDE project and the GNOME project and developers for Wayland and for all of these other things? And it doesn't seem like much, but a lot of schools started using these things. That money could go right back in to these people that are developing these wonderful systems that we love to use every day as a Linux desktop user. I don't know. Not sure. Just curious. So, if you have ideas, feel free to share them in the comments. But if you could, if you've thought of a problem or something that wouldn't work, try to post a solution. Hey, here's a solution. And look, I get the get off my lawn mindset. I get it. I really do. It's fine. You can tell us to get off your lawn. That's fine. Go ahead and post "get off my lawn" if it was, something that you don't want. But I think this is a potential to really help a lot of people get into a simple place and to use desktop Linux. I think it's cool. Why don't you go ahead and tell me in the comments what you think. Let's keep doing this Linux thing, and I'll see you tomorrow.